There we go. First look at some new beams on the Green Ranger. I've only just put the beam pivot bolts in with the Heims, and now getting ready to start working on the radius arm tab design. So this was the first little test fit. Before I threw the tires on, I kind of cycled them a little bit, hit them on the bumps and stuff like that. And yeah, kind of got track width, wheelbase, all that stuff set up to what it was. And from there, we can keep moving on. You can see from the old beams, if you remember, past videos, we've got more clearance in here now. So that's what I was talking in the last video. There's all sorts of reasons why we're changing the beams on this truck. You have to go to the last video and watch that if you missed it. But you can see we have a lot more clearance now in for the frame. We've got uniball and Heim ends on it now. They're also lighter. My beams are lighter than the ones that came off of it, which will help with suspension for tuning wise for shocks. So that'll be cool. And yeah, nothing really else. I guess we just gotta get busy and keep working. I gotta jump on the computer and jump on my roller and get under here with a tape measure and start taking dimensions and jumping over on the computer and drawing up some tabs to cut out on the plasma table so we can bolt some radius arms on that thing. Currently, I'm working on radius arm tabs. I just got the driver's side all done as far as tacked up goes and in position. I've been cycling this beam. If you see this bump stop off, that is because we're a little forward, but I made these tab holes a little further away from the beam than the last set in order to shorten up that Heim some. We have a lot of threads out on the Heim, so I wanted to take up some of that thread length with my beam pivot. So once I get this stuff all welded in, I'll actually take that Heim off and adjust. We'll pull that beam back into position with the bump stop there to make sure that's centered. But everything else as far as clearances goes up and around that beam pivot. The other thing would be this thing has a stock cross member in the middle of it. We'll come over here so you can actually see it. And if you see, you can see how much that beam is tucked up inside that factory cross member. Hey, I'll come a little more over there. That cross member's kind of got like a U-channel in it. It's just like a stamped steel cross member. And that beam's got to come right up in between there for bumping all the way out. Earlier I had said one of the goals of swapping these beams on here is to achieve more up travel. So we are doing that. Even you'll see that this bump stop's not bumped out yet. That is because my beam is much lower than the last one. So I'll have to build a built-up bump pad this distance right in here to get this to bump out here. The other thing is with getting more up travel, I cycled the tire in here to see at turning if we have any clearance issues, and the only clearance issue I can see is this corner right in here on the body. So I'm gonna actually, you can see some marker lines I drew in here. I'm gonna come in and kind of cut this back to this wall here. We're gonna cut this on an angle and cut this corner piece out, and that'll allow the tire to turn in here more all the way up at bump and gain us more travel. Right now, I think I had said I was going for 2 inches, as that's what I wanted to get. And right now, without trimming that, what were we at? 10. We're at 1.5 inches. So it was 8 inches of up travel from ride height. Right now, it's sitting at 10 inches. If I don't, 8.5 and then 10 inches or 10.5. I don't remember now. I'm getting myself confused. But if I trim this, I think I can gain another 1/2 inch, and that will get me to my 2 inches that we were shooting for. So that's why that is on the list, because I think we can cut that little bit of body and we'll gain a little bit more up travel. That'll also mean the bump pad I make will be a 1/2 inch shorter because this is going to come up more. So right now though, I'm working on the radius arm tabs, and I figured all that out doing the driver's side, but I still need to do the passenger side. So before we get too crazy and far ahead, we'll go ahead and get the passenger side tore down and get those on the other beam. But as far as like for shock mounting, you can see our shock's going to be somewhere right in there, so that'll be kind of next on the list. Getting some shock tabs, getting the bump stop pad, and then yeah, one of the things I didn't think I was going to have to do, but I totally forgot, this was a Ford style beam, and they were using the factory knuckles, which has the Ford wedge calipers. So we're gonna end up switching to the Chevy style single big piston caliper because they are bolt on and have bolts. Because that will be another to-do thing on the list. We got the brake rotor and the hub, everything on here. I'll actually make a tab that will come off the back side of this knuckle here to hold a bolt-on style caliper. So that is kind of what we're looking at doing. We're gonna jump over to the passenger side, get caught up this far, and then we'll be working on shocks, bump stops, and brakes. And once we do all that, we can rip all this stuff out back off, throw it on the bench, weld everything up, and beams are gonna be pretty much well done. I've gotten all the shock tabs and some steering tabs on the knuckles tacked up, and also the bump stop pads are all tacked up. You've seen me in that last time-lapse stuff there, kind of working on all that. I was bumping stuff out, built those bump pads, built them height accordingly to get the beam and the tire and everything to bump out where we wanted. I've gotten the coilover and the bypass shock tabs made. One little thing I was going to show on this is the weld washers, if you notice, are on the insides of the tabs. For these, instead of doing them on the outside, the reason I like to do these on the inside is because it helps with the misalignment in the uniball. It gives it a little more clearance. If you can see, like this rod end, someone's already ground that thing all out trying to get more clearance for a shock tab. But this, doing something like this instead of grinding these out, is a nice little trick. I don't remember where I picked that up. I seen that years ago somewhere on the internet, and works really well for shocks. On other stuff like swingers and things like that, I'll just put them on the outside. But for the shocks especially, and I can show you the reason why, because on this one over here it's bumped, and that's where you'll get angle. So you can see on this rod end, if we get in here, that uniball in there and those misalignments are angled because the beam's up, all the way up at bump, and because of those weld washers being on the inside giving us a little bit more space, we have clearance on those rod ends. Now these rod ends are ground out extra, so but you should be able to clearance a stock rod end with doing that. So anyways, there's a passenger side up at bump that's sitting there. Shocks are all in. So that stuff is ready to get fully welded. I'm gonna pull all that stuff off to do all that. But before we pull everything off, there's a couple more tasks to get knocked out. I'm gonna start working on now. I threw this tire on because I'm gonna start working on the tie rods, getting those remade. So I'm actually gonna throw the tire on the other side and put that down at ride height as well, so I can make those. And then the other thing will be doing the brakes, making a brake caliper tab for the bolt-on style brakes to go onto it. So once I get those two things mocked up and made, we'll get those tacked on here, and then I'll be pulling all this stuff off one more time, putting it on the bench. And the spindle, like this spindle, there's gussets that go on each side of this, there's gussets that go up in here, so all that stuff will get done on the bench. These tabs even have gussets that go on the front. Bump stops need all welded, so all that stuff will get fully welded up once I get steering and brakes done. I just finished making and tacking up these new straight tie rods and getting everything back up at bump and cycling tires, making sure that everything clears and there's no issues and that we're going to be able to run straight tie rods. So checking it out, this passenger side, no issues at all. We got clearance right up and through there in between the swinger and the beam, lock to lock, turns. We don't hit this bolt on the back side of that. I'm going to end up trimming this anyways just to give it more room, but it's not hitting it. So we're at full bump on this side. So the passenger side is good to go. On the driver's side, there is only one single issue, which I did remember. I haven't said it in this video yet, but I was planning on making a new pitman arm anyways. So we are not quite up at bump on the driver's tire, and it's still got a little bit of gap. I can go a little more, but we're running into the pitman arm. So we need more clearance right here to be able to run this straight tie rod. What we're gonna end up doing, if you can see, they're actually using a big bolt. Instead of using any misalignments, it's got a big bolt coming up through that heim. I'm gonna end up lopping this pitman arm off about halfway and using the splines of it, and then I'm gonna make a plate pitman arm that does use misalignments, and we're gonna bring this position up a little bit, and we're also gonna lose about an inch off of this bottom by having it plate and with a standard bolt instead of that, I don't know, 3/4 or might even be a 1 inch, I'm not sure. So we'll have right now we're gonna hit this. So the bottom of this pitman arm, the new one, is gonna be about up in here. So that is the next project I'm gonna work on, because if I can get that to clearance and we can get this to bump out, then we are good to go with the straight tie rods, and I'll go ahead and start pulling stuff off and welding these up. Actually, never mind, we'll go to the brake tabs. I still got to design, and then we'll cut out on the plasma table a brake tab, and we'll do that next. And then we'll pull everything off. So we're going to work on, for now, I do got to set this stuff back down and get that pitman arm pulled off and start modifying that. Just getting ready to start tearing beams and steering back off this thing one more time and get everything on the bench to do finish welding. I have just kind of finished mocking everything up. The time lapses kind of fell off there at the end. The last couple tasks I was doing on here really didn't get that much footage, so just kind of give you a little overview, and that'll probably be the end of today's video. We'll be welding this and reinstalling in the next one. So, a couple little things. I didn't really film any pitman arm build stuff. We got a new pitman arm in up there. A little sleeker this way. Move the position of where that is at. So now we got clearance. So that is done. We did achieve the straight tie rods on this thing, so that's super awesome. The last task I was just doing was getting the brakes on. It did have originally the Ford knuckles, which use a wedge style. That caliper drops down into the knuckle, and then it's got these pins that you pound in, and it keeps that thing in place. That will not work for our fabricated aftermarket spindle upright. So what I did is we've got a set of GM big piston calipers. These are off like the 70s, 80s, K20s, the front disc brakes. Used on pretty much everything. This has got a Ford 9-inch with these calipers on the back of it already. So that is why we went with these. It's the exact same brake as that. It's a big single piston. The difference is it uses bolts to mount and to hold the pads in versus that wedge style pin. So I made up some little tabs. Those are tack weld on the back of the spindle. So I am at a point now. Shocks are on. The radius arms are on. Everything is mocked up, and now it just needs all to be ripped back apart so we can weld everything. We're going to take the spindle and everything back apart. The Dana 44 spindle still has the 6 bolts in it from OEM. I am going to throw that in the CNC mill, maybe probably in the next episode. We'll get that drilled out to 12 bolts. If you don't remember, my aftermarket spindles, I use 12 bolts. So that's something I do to the OEM Dana 44 spindles. The snouts, I take them and I add 6 more holes so we can get 12 bolts in those things and just a little more strength. And let's see, what else did we do in that segment? We got the bump stop pads made and on and in position. So there is some stuff that you're going to see. There's like gussets in here missing. There's shock tab gussets missing. All of that stuff is sitting here, cut out on the table, just waiting. You can see like these gussets here will end up getting dimple dyed and they'll get welded in. And I actually even have a set, they're sitting up here, of the gussets for the steering arm to the spindle upright that will go in there. So all of that stuff will happen in the next video. That's what I'll be, when I tear this off, I've got probably a day or two full of just welding all the stuff that you see out there, and then I'm putting all the gusset pieces on it. And that will be the beam stuff. So pretty pumped to have it to this point, have everything cycling. It's looking really good. I did take some measurements and numbers. Right now, this thing's going to be bumped at 21 inches, bumped and strapped. So super happy on that. I do not remember exactly what the travel numbers were on the old setup that was in here. I think it was something like close to 19 inches. So I do think we gained a couple inches of travel. Just making things clearance a little better under there. And that's what we do here at Dune Hippie Machine. We specialize in suspension and trying to get the absolute most out of an aftermarket setup like this. It's kind of like, if you're going to build a long travel setup, why not build it to the best of your ability? And that's what we do. We'll end this little segment. Another little fun thing. As I'm working on this today, if you've been following me for a while, you know that that is not the first I-beam truck that I've worked on and build. But this one right here is. This is back at my shop, my home. We're going to end up doing a few more things on this. There is like a brake pedal switch that's got to get done. So the brake lights can work. There's like a bezel here I'm going to make for this side exit exhaust. Some simple little stuff like that. Nothing too crazy, but this truck is the beam kit number 1. It's got my Dana 44 hubcaps on there. Big shock package. And then, yeah, all the beams, all the cage work. Did all that stuff on this truck. So I got a lot of videos on this truck on the channel. You have to go probably like a year ago to find them. Full TE Designs cage got put in this thing. So pretty cool and like surreal moment for me being a business owner and running this stuff is that truck came back and got dropped off here after it's been gone all winter with the new owner, just as I'm finishing up the Green Ranger I-beam swap. So pretty cool. We also then still, we're gonna get back to this white Chevy. We got beams and everything sitting here for this too. So right now, currently, we've got 3 beam trucks on property that are all getting built by me, and that's pretty much what we do here. I-beam suspensions, Dune Hippie Machine. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the dunes. Peace.